Actually, make sure I get all this shit in here. We're good. God damn. All right. Let's see. Let's go for a ride. Oh. Oh boy. All right, guys. This is the back end of my first ride. I did not. Well, I recorded the audio, and I fat fingered the fucking format button. So still got the video, but I do not have the audio, sadly. My voice audio. It'll have wind, that's for sure. But this is going to be the first motovlog on the Sportster S. And as you can hear in my voice back there, you go through some little tiny bumps and shit like that. It's gonna make some weird noises in my voice. And I realized that I don't have my mic, or I'm sorry, my helmet clipped in, so give me a second. Put the cruise on. There you go, I'm sure you heard that. Cruise is handy, I will admit that. Alright, so first ride, first motovlog on the Sportster S. Let's get a miles odometer count or whatever. We're looking at, what's that say, 2867. So almost 3,000 miles on this bike, and I got it like the first day of September. So, I mean, that's all. I rode this thing hard. And as you can see, I still have, or I have a check engine light on. And I will explain my hypothesis. I don't really know 100% if for the reason why, but I'm gonna assume that it's because of how the bike started. I ran it yesterday. Started. It didn't start the first time. I clicked the button. It started the second time. The battery is weak on this bike. It's kind of trash. I should have put a higher cold cranking amp battery on it, but they did not. So it's kind of what they gave the owners of the bike to deal with. So today I went to start it up, and it turned over, started, and then as soon as it started, it dipped. Like the RPMs, the revs just dipped right off, and then it went back to normal. So it was one start button application, and then for some odd reason it just did not want to like stay at the idle it should. And I knew the second I heard that, I'm like, yep, it's gonna throw a code. And it did through two ECM, so the engine control module codes. I didn't take a picture of them because they're just pseudos, they're not real. It's not a real issue. Just, I'm gonna imagine the voltage or something to do, the bike didn't get enough power. I'm thinking maybe it didn't get enough power to one of the sensors in the engine, but it had enough to start it, so it got all confused and hot and bothered. So now I have a check engine light that I can't clear, and I don't know if there's a miles that you ride. I'm not sure. Like if you ride 100 miles, it goes away. I don't know. But yeah. So that's up. But there's no codes on the engine, but it has that. It's kind of a persistent check engine light. I'm assuming more firmware updates get pushed, it will go away. It won't be as sensitive. I think the parameters for this bike to set a code off are a little too wide. I think they need to narrow those down, but they haven't. So this is what we get. It's not a bad thing, you know. It's just trying to keep you informed, but I think it's just a little too sensitive. So we got that going on. And the only way I know how to reset it is to you either unplug the battery, which is a pain in the ass, or you can just go right here by this sucker right there. You have to take 2 screws out, and it'll have a main fuse, a 40 amp main fuse. You just you just take it out, and then wait about 10-20 seconds, plug it back in, and everything will be reset. Kind of like what you can do in a car. And it will save the historic check engine, or the historic codes, so the dealership can see it, and you can tell them, like, hey, it did this, it rode fine, it wouldn't go away, so I just, unplugged it, plugged it back in. So they can do that, and they can do whatever they need to do with their computer to try to check it out. So it's not a big deal, but it's a pain in the ass. But you kind of have to expect to have issues like that when you're dealing with such a new platform, new engine as well, in a whole different way of, I guess you could say, electronics for Harley Davidson. I don't know exactly how different the electronics from this bike are compared to like a CVO or a Road King, or they're models with a lot of tech, because the bigger Harleys, they got a full touchscreen, full infotainment. They're not slouches in the technology department. I think this is just a different implementation of it. So that will get ironed out in time. I wish there was a way like that I could you could send data to the software developers that work for Harley, or who they contract to do this kind of software development, and you could just send it over to them, like, hey, here's the diagnostics of this bike, through this many miles. Do what you got to do with it, learn from it. You know what I mean? Like you can do that with software on a computer. I wish that was an option for this bike. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just in the background, and every time a tech hooks up, it downloads it, and then it sends it. That seems too good to be true, though. But Harley's worked great with me. If there are any concerns that I've had, I did have some oil leakage on the side of the engine a little bit, on both sides. Through the first 1,000 miles, it ended up going away before my first oil change, but I let them know. And then I had a coolant leak on this right hand side, and as you can see, that guy right, I don't know if we can catch it, but that little side cover, plastic side cover, they had to take that off, and the rubber hose had a leak, or it didn't fit right with the clamp or something, so they pretty much got all the air out of the system, put a new clamp on, got it to not leak, and then this was in like September, and after that they got all the air out of the radiator, and it didn't leak at all. But I keep it in a shed that's concrete floor. It's got power, so the battery's always has constant charge, but it still did not fix the issue for the leak. I'm gonna guess, because we had some 30 below days, that might have had something to do with it, because rubber and plastic, I don't think they, much like metals, different types of metals, aluminum and shit like that, they don't because when shit gets cold, it shrinks or whatever. I don't know the technical term. I'm having a moment, but I would assume that's the same with plastic and rubber. So I think that's what caused the leak. But it was still persistent yesterday as I rode. It was still leaking a little bit, but I really didn't get the bike up to temperature, so I'm going to assume as the coolant gets up to temperature pretty good, as I ride, it'll probably be more properly set, but maybe it won't be, because maybe when the leak starts and the coolant is in between the plastic and the rubber hose, maybe that is what stops it from actually sealing up and stopping the leak. But the moral of the story is Harley will fix it. They fixed it once, they'll do it again, and it won't cost me a dime. And it's really a non-issue. So I'm not worried about that at all. I'm not worried about the codes or anything like that. You know, how I look at it is, it's like dating someone. You know, when you want to date someone, there's a few reasons why you're into that person, right? Either they look good, or you like their personality, or they're athletic, or whatever your taste is. You're drawn to that person, right? I was drawn to this bike by the performance and all the technology on it, right? So there's the attraction, right? And then, like when you're dating someone, they're gonna have some characteristics that you might not be a big fan of, but in the grand scheme of things, you're like, well, you gotta compensate. You gotta, like, take the good with the bad. Same with a motorcycle. I think any motorcycle is gonna have good and bad. And the bad with this bike is just that, it's just a new platform. There's still some characteristics is what we'll call it. We won't call it issues that need to be ironed out, and it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, if I was gonna have something wrong with this bike, it would have definitely been in that first, couple thousand miles, because after the break-in, I rode this motherfucker hard. So yeah, I mean, you take the good and the bad like you do with any relationship, So I mean, that's how you should treat your bike, or think of your bike, because you bought it for a reason. You bought it because you liked it and it did something, and that's your main reason to like the bike. But with anything, there's gonna be some things that you might get frustrated about, and that's the same with anything. Like, it's the same if you got a dog, or you get a house, a TV. It could be just a material object, or it could be a living thing. You're going to like things about it, and you're going to dislike things about it. I dislike the problems that I'm having just with the amount of technology issues, and you could say some of the coolant leaking is an issue, or a little bit of oil leaking out on the seals, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. A lot of this shit will be taken care of by the dealer, and it won't mean anything to me. So I'm not just gonna dislike the bike, or I'm not gonna worry my ass off. I'm gonna think about it, think about how maybe I could fix it. But at the end of the day, I don't really need to try to fix it myself, So that's what I think. Now, we'll also talk about the break-in period. I'm sure some people are wondering that, and maybe some people don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it's my video, so stick it. Got the bike early September. I had done a fair bit of research on it, and I'm by no means an engineer or that knowledgeable about engine braking. I've had a bike that I bought brand new, and with different manufacturers, so I kind of have an idea. And from what the Victory guy told me about that bike is, whether it's true or not, but he made it sound like it was kind of like how apparently Ducati does it, like they just bang it off the fucking rev limiter, which I guess if it's a lemon, that'll bring it out. But so I kind of had that idea, don't keep it at a constant idle speed or RPM. Make sure you don't lug it. I think that's what the Victory manual said. The Harley manual is similar to that. I think it's still more geared toward the air-cooled V-twin and how to kind of break that one in. So it's a little bit different, but my salesman and the dealership I went to just said, ride that fucker like you want to ride it. So no, it's kind of like a fingerprint. Everybody's different with engine braking, and so I kind of just do what I thought was best, and what I did is I always whenever I start the bike up for a ride, or if I start it up at all, I'm gonna make sure that bike's oil on the gauge will be 180 or warmer. And I know that it's not gonna warm up the whole engine, but the majority of the components should be getting warm. They should be, expanding to what they need to be for optimal riding conditions, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. So I'd let it warm up for a few minutes, whatever it would take. Maybe shut the bike off, start getting dressed, and then as, a little bit, right before I'm getting ready to take the bike out, I'm going to start it back up, let it run for a few more minutes. By this time, the engine's got down to $150, maybe $160. Let the engine get back warm again. As it gets warm again, then I would take it out for a rip. And I definitely would not horse on it at the beginning of a ride. I would let the bike properly warm up while riding. I think that's a big, that's an important thing to do, especially with an engine like this that's not necessarily new to Harley. They've had the V-Rod engine and stuff like that, but just to make sure, just peace of mind, I would take it easy till I'm 10 minutes into the ride, 15 minutes into the ride. Now, I would definitely try to go through each gear. I would treat the RPMs, the revs, whatever. I would make sure that I wasn't just in the gear, not out of the gear, right? I would make sure that when I'm in that gear, I would go from low to high. Maybe stay in the gear a little too long, some would say, but I wanted to get every gear the right amount of throttle and torque, and to let every gear kind of get worn in. And I know I'm saying gear, but that's what I mean, like when I'm in a gear, but I know that's clutch plates, and trying to just work everything in, like a nice deep tissue massage. Work that fucker in through every gear. Not lug the engine. Definitely didn't want to do that. And that's how I approached it. Make sure that the engine is warm, and then use every gear. Make sure not to keep it at a constant RPM. Not to lug it. Try to fluctuate the gears, brake, keep shifting that bike. Let everything just get used a lot for that first 1,000 miles, because you're going to get that oil change, and you're going to hopefully get all the metal out of your system then. I mean, you're going to have metal in your first oil change of the bike. Seat those pistons properly, or the rings properly. Get them all scored up in the cylinder walls. You want to get that done. You want to do it right. You want to be smart, but you still want to enjoy the bike. So as long as you're not living on that rev limiter every once in a while, it's okay. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to bang on it, just not sustained, right? And you want to be mindful of, to try to avoid the things I spoke of. And I think if you do that, you'll be just fine. You know, there's a lot of people that they don't even give a fuck. They're just gonna ride that bike because they want to ride it, and they haven't had a problem. So I think when you have a liquid cooled bike, it's a little bit more forgiving than with an air cooled bike. So that's my thoughts on that. Air cooled bikes, you kind of have to be a little bit more mindful of the temperature, I believe. But at the end of the day, don't abuse the engine, but enjoy it. No lugging, you know. Just go gear below what you think you should be sometimes, so you can avoid that lug, because that lug is not good. It don't matter the engine. Lugging ain't good for it. So that's my recommendation, and I'm sure a lot of people approach it differently than I did, and that's fine, and it probably worked great for you. But this has worked for me. I haven't had any actual, no actual problems yet with this engine. I'm doubtful that I will, and I'm hopeful that I'm going to have a long life with this bike. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. It's worked good for me. Yes, there is some minor issues with it, mainly just the cooling. It did, you know, like I said, a slight little oil leak on the side of the engine, but that's not crazy. It's not like it was a detriment to the bike. I just kind of, I think the seals and shit just had to get to the temperatures that they needed to be, and then they were good. Maybe it was by design. I don't know. But let's change gears from, you know, the whole breaking in side of the bike. Let's talk about the overall ride, especially for someone that's about 5'6" like me. For my body build, it's what I want. Could I use a little bit more relaxed handlebars that kind of come a little bit closer to me? Yeah, but this is fine. The seat, I mean, as everyone else has probably said, it's definitely not a long ride kind of bike. But the more you ride with it in the summer, the more miles you put on, your body kind of learns it, right? And it doesn't feel as bad as it did to start with. So, like, this is my first ride of 2023, and my ass, I'm a little bit over an hour into it. My ass it's kind of letting me know, like, hey, dude, like, just kind of stiff. But I don't know why, but the more you ride it, the less that feeling gets. It's not really pain. It's just kind of a annoyance. And for some odd reason, it actually does kind of dissipate. So it's not as, well, you know, you don't really feel it as much. At least me. I mean, I'm about $170, $180. And, it works for me. My body build is a longer torso and a shorter leg, so even with some boots on, I don't completely flat foot it. And, you know, it's not a big deal, but it might be for someone who doesn't have, you know, that kind of... I'm definitely not a, you know, bodybuilder by any means, but I'm not a slouch, so, like, I can easily throw this bike around when I need to, like at a stop sign or whatever, and I can even... I'm not really on my tippy toes, but my heels are off the ground. I can still move the bike if I'm at, like, an angle or, you know, like an incline. So it's not really an issue, but for someone it could be. So maybe you would want to get a custom seat or something like that. I wouldn't recommend lowering the bike any more than it is, or you're going to start bottoming out, and you don't want to do that. I love the adjustability in the suspension front and back. That's pretty badass, and you really can tell. I would highly recommend reading the manual about adjusting your suspension and use that as a baseline for your weight, because that's in there. It gives you an idea of, this is your weight, we recommend this, and then it gives you a description of what an adjustment this way or that way will do. And then you can kind of dial it into what you want. And that's what I did, and I'm fairly comfortable with the ride. I mean, could I use a little bit different seat? Yeah, but I think I'm going to let the market kind of expand before I make a purchase. I understand Corbin is a really good brand. I had him on my last bike, but I'm going to let some other manufacturers that make seats come out. I know there's a lot of guys who will definitely add their upholstery touch, cushions and all that good jazz to it, but I'm just gonna wait to see what else is out there. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with the amount of adjustability that this bike has for suspension. It's pretty mind blowing. Oh, that race car. Technology wise, I mean, shit, you can't really beat this system. But big asterisk when it's working. As you can see right now, how that's black right under the B sign, the Bluetooth icon, it's black and it's fully black, which means that the bike is connected properly. Now, if you have it on a black display, I think it's like maybe like a white outline and a black dot, or it's a white dot, I don't fucking know. But if you see any red in there, that means it's not connected properly. The bike has the Bluetooth module in this infotainment system has a mind of its own, and it cannot be turned off like you can with your cell phone. Your phone, you can just hit Bluetooth. It doesn't matter the operating system. You can turn that Bluetooth off. This bike, no. Per this build, which the firmware build I'm speaking of, you can't turn the Bluetooth off. The only way to really turn it off is to undo the fuse, like we talked about, which, I mean, it's not really ideal. And to my knowledge, that's the only real way to do it. So that's kind of a pain, because it will unsync, and you cannot get it to sync unless you pretty much turn the fucking power off. Now, the one way that I've been able to get it to actually work properly is to set a destination on the Harley Davidson app. Mind you, this is what I did in the fall of 22, so I'm sure the app is updated, and I'm sure the newer firmware probably would work better, but I haven't done that yet. So you would set a destination on the Harley app, and then you would send that over to the bike, and it 100% that it would work. It didn't matter. It would always sync. But if I didn't set a destination on the app and I just turned the bike on, it wouldn't work. When it doesn't work, you can't, if I recall, you can't control some of the features with your phone. I think music would still play, but I don't know if you could make calls or something like that. What else was there? Oh, if your phone and your Bluetooth headset that you have in your in your helmet are what the fuck's going on here? I'm not trying to get run over. I'll just wait. So if you got a Bluetooth communicator in your helmet and you're trying to connect that communicator to your bike, you have to actually go to your phone, not phone, golly. You gotta go to your phone and disconnect them. Disconnect your helmet to your phone. And when you do that, it will work properly. It'll work better. Because when you don't disconnect your communicator with your phone, you're actually going to get a really fucked up noise, and it's going to sound like ass. I can't even explain it. I did it. It was only really weird for phone calls, but it would cut out during music. Kind of like you had a bad cable, a bad HDMI cable, or your fucking antenna for your TV raining or some shit got it short. It just didn't work right. So you got to make sure that your phone and headset are not communicated, because how this thing works is the bike is the in-between. The bike makes the calls, and the bike can kind of control your phone. It needs to be kind of parallel. When you have the headset and the phone connected, they just argue over who's in charge, for lack of a better analogy. So that was that. I got that figured out. But it's still, audio still would cut out. Sometimes it wouldn't sync and it would have issues, which just comes down to the software needs to just be continually worked on, and they have put through an update, and I'm sure they'll put through a few updates this summer. And I'm going to imagine that some of them will make progress, and then some of them won't. Like, give me one good one. Hopefully you make two good ones, but I suspect it'll be one good firmware update, and the other one's going to be ass, just like they do with freaking Windows. So, or your iPhone. I just had an iPhone update, and then I had another one because there were some vulnerabilities. So software isn't, it's not easy. So I guess got to give them some time, and they'll figure it out. But the bike, I mean, you got to be patient. It's a work in progress. And if you think that just because it's a brand new bike that it's going to be it's going to work perfectly, well, then you're an idiot. So should it work perfectly? Maybe. But you're also going to set yourself up for fucking disappointment. Be prepared to have issues and thankful when you don't. This bike was, I think, made for roads like this. Nice and windy. I don't want to go too hard because they're not clean. But this bike just loves this shit. Can't get enough of it. I have drag peg on this bike, both sides. I'm curious to see. They say that the mid controls don't affect lean angle, but I'll be curious to see how it affects my handling when I do, because I feel like it would just by the center of the bike. I don't know. We'll figure it out this summer. We'll do it together. We'll scrape peg together. And the brakes are pretty good, as they should be. They're Brembos. Single disc, front and back, so some people got all sorts of upset, but less shit I need to clean around. Brakes are still good, still work good, got ABS, lean sensitive, all that good jazz. I'm not sure if there's going to be any rocks and shit on this. No. Now, some people don't like clutchless shifting, but I think when you're going up in the gears and you let out completely your or your throttle, I don't see a problem with it. Yeah, buddy. I tell you, man, it's hard to explain how amazing this bike fucking feels with the power that it has. It's kind of remarkable. Now, the only problem with having this much fun and torque is you're going to eat that rear tire up. And from what I understand, I think it was either the front or the back tire was like kind of special in the shape of it or something stupid like that. So, as far as I know, the only tires you can get are the Harley tires, and they're $200 to $300 minimum from the dealer. And last I knew, Revzilla didn't carry them, so it's in the back of my mind, but fuck it. That's a Luke issue for a couple months. Not an issue right now, so I'm not even gonna think about it. You just can't beat a fucking motorcycle ride mid-February, February 15th. And it's 60 some odd degrees and it's sunny? Yeah. Up here in New York? Yeah, right. Unreal. When I get home, I'm gonna undo the fuse here and see if that check engine light goes away. Man, you just love it. I just can't wait until spring rolls around, get the salt off the road, get consistently warm, nice days. We're gonna get a lot of fucking rainy days, which is gonna spoil my fun, but gosh, I can't fucking wait, man. It's gonna be great. Three-wheeler, nice. I think when I get old, if I end up getting a three-wheeler, it'll probably be one of, I think the Spiders. Wait, those got the two wheels in the front, don't they? I don't know what the fuck I'll do. Oh, lit. It's just nothing better than just fucking ripping. This is the dangerous part of the spring, is just when you get your bike, you want to have fucking fun, but people are not used to motorcycles yet. The road still has a nice layer of shit on it, even though like this road looks like it's decent, but there's still some hidden dust that's just waiting to be fucking kicked up. All part of it. I got a story to tell you when we get up here, and I'm not gonna be able to like really. I'm not gonna fucking animate it. All right, that's way past my pay grade, but I'll give you a description of what happened to an accident that I saw. Alright, so backstory. I was coming, the last ride of the year, I was coming out to the city here, and I passed a car. Let's say, let's just get point of view. I passed that blue car right there, right? And then I look in my rear view mirror and I see a Dodge Charger, no, is a Challenger flying, right? A Dodge, brand new Dodge Challenger, whatever the fuck it's called, flying on my ass. So I'm like, okay, this motherfucker wants to race. So I do 100 or whatever. And I slow down for this corner. Now, mind you, I was coming at me. I was on the other side of the road going this way. And that Charger got right where that car is right now. Right about now. He lost it and hit this fucking guide rail and almost went down that, whatever, an embankment. And I'm like, oh my god, I wish I was recording just so you could fucking hear the panic in my voice, but I turned around and I ran over to him, and the guy is standing outside the car. I mean, the car is totaled. It's like he smacked a tree, he rolled that fucker. I'm like, dude, are you alright? And he didn't really say anything. I said, where are you from? He told me, and then he sat down and I called 911. And I'm not gonna lie, I was worried because, you know, I was hammering it. I flew up this fucking road here doing well over 100. And the fire guys got there, they, you know, took care of it. I was kicking shit out of the road, telling people to slow the fuck down, and I told the fire guys, just listen, it's probably my last day to ride, I'm out. They said, just tell them my name, and then the deputy or the trooper got a hold of me, and he's like, is that guy flying? I was like, well, I think so, because normally they don't, you know, they don't wreck like that corner there. And he's like, yeah, that's what I kind of figured. Scary situation to see. I did feel a little guilty because it wasn't my fault though, but he was trying to race, so that kind of ended my riding season. But yeah, wild event. Imagine if that was a cop. LOL. I'm just really hoping that everything's still attached to my bike. I mean, fuck, I don't even know if that tail light that I put on or that fucking license plate bracket's still there. I don't know shit. Big bumps. Big bumps. I believe I put Loctite on them. I don't know. They could have fucking flew off. I don't hear tinking or shit, you know. But my buddy lives over there. Just gotta let him know who the boss is, you know. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video.